Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 257 of our podcast. Now, listen, if you have questions, send them to the podcast at DanJohnUniversity.com. Each and every week, I sit down and I answer your questions. This is a Q&A podcast. We have received a lot lately, so I've been hunkering down and trying to get through as many questions as I can. Thanks, and let's get going. So our first question is from Mark. Mark's a brave soul. He says, I'm 2 days away from completing the 10,000 swing challenge for the third time in about 18 months. That's about my record too. I find it get a little boring. Now, an interesting thing. I used a 25 kilo bell. It's adjustable and comes apart, so I'm able to get 25 kilos. I love it. So 1 kilo better than the rest of us. I was thinking of another challenge, and I was wondering if you thought it was a good idea. The 30-day Kettlebell Complex Challenge. The idea is to do a different complex every day for 30 days straight, never repeating a complex. For example, day 1 could be the ABC, day 2, the Deep 6, day 3, any one of Pat Flynn's complexes, and so on and so forth. I'm 46 in reasonably good shape. Been training since I was a high school athlete. I've been training with kettlebells for 4 years. I make it through the 10,000 swing challenge relatively easy. I love these challenges. Well, it's good to hear that you're using the ABC. There is a good book by Alex Salkin. I just wrote the foreword to it. I think he has 3 books. He's a complex guy also. He also goes by the Hebrew Hammer. Pat Flynn, of course, has a lot in his book, Paleo Fitness for Dummies. He's got a whole mix. And of course, if you get to his early work, I don't remember what the books are called, but they're all complexes and names like, they've got a whole bunch of fun names. There's another resource I like a lot, and that's Mike Krifka. Mike's out of basically the Washington, D.C. area. And he has 2 books. One's called like the 007 Protocol or something like that. And he's a big fan of kettlebell complexes too. Frankly, and this is maybe just me, but there's probably, 5 or 6 kettlebell complexes I would use and trust. But man, you can go on YouTube, go online, and there's people just throw all kinds of things together. When I see, 4 variations of reverse lunges, I'm always like, okay, they're just reaching for it now. There is a complex that I tried one time to make happen at a kettlebell cert, RKC, where you do a Turkish get-up into a set of snatches, into clean and press, and usually most people, their snatches look more like a clean and press anyway. You dropped into a single side front squat. You did and then you dropped into some swings, put the bell down, Turkish get up, snatch, and just repeat it down. Thousands of variations. Are they good? Yeah, I think kettlebells are the ultimate density tool. So for load, I don't think anyone would argue better than the barbell. The barbell is the master of holding load because that's what it's for. For things like circuit training, I think the dumbbell really can be great. You can honestly use 25 kilos here, but if all you had was 2 20 kilo dumbbells, 40 to 45 pound dumbbells, and you just went into a gym and decided to do, alternating press, alternating bench press, row, some kind of variation with the squat, some kind of variation of the hinge. I think the dumbbell is a great circuit training tool. But for absolute density training, there's something magical about the kettlebell. Obviously, not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but I like your idea. The biggest thing for me, Mark, is where are you going to come up with those 28, 30, or 29 every 4th year, 28, 29, 30th, and 31st workouts? That's the thing that throws me off. Over in my book, The Armor Building Formula, basically I have 2 you can use. I've got the ABC complex, which you can use, and I got the single side, the single kettlebell armor building complex. Those are 2 options I can give you. I've got the humane burpee, and I always have to repeat things on the YouTube channel because there's always people who don't know what's going on in the comments. Humane burpee, 15 swings, 10 goblet squats, 10 push-ups, 15 swings, 9 goblet squats, 9 push-ups, 15, 8, 8, 15, all the way down to 15, 1, 1. It's 150 swings, it's 55 goblet squats and 55 push-ups, and you can make it easier. I have another one called the Sparrow Hawk, and that's much easier. That'll be too easy for you, but goblet squats and suitcase carries, where the goblet squats are 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do a suitcase carry in between each one. I love the idea, Mark. I mean, I think I can get you to about, maybe if we worked hard, I can get you 2 weeks of ideas, but those next 2+ weeks are gonna be the tough one for you. But great stuff. I'd love it if you would just maybe send you in the future the list that you come up with. I would love to see that, and I'd much appreciate it. Thank you, Mark. Fun question to kick this off. Got a question from Andrew. I'm a 52-year-old male, 6'1", 240, and have trained with kettlebells on and off for 10 years. I live in Norway, Skudai, so challenging weather, and our house has relatively low ceilings. While I am not professional basketball tall, I am tall enough that it's challenging to do anything overhead without coming in contact with the ceiling. Yeah, I'm only 6 feet, but yeah, I wouldn't lift in the house in a couple of my rooms. Question: are half kneeling presses and snatches as effective as their standing counterparts? Any other suggestions? Well, I got to tell you this. I think the half kneeling press is the best of the kettlebell presses. Okay, that was a big statement, needs big proof, and I can't support it. Clearly, I think the single hand kettlebell press is the best. I really like it. I like the two-handed press, and I like the alternating family. But to make things better for most people, dropping into that half kneeling position. So that means, in this case, my right knee is on the ground like I'm kneeling, and my left foot is on the ground. It looks like I'm doing a hip flexor stretch, or I'm touching my knee in a lunge. That position, when you start pressing in that position, you can feel the hip flexor stretch. You can feel the whole core, the column, whatever you want to call it, the anaconda strength show up. If you squeeze the offside butt cheeks, if you have the bar in the right hand and let's say your right knee is down, you squeeze your left butt cheek, you can really see how the ab wall and the glutes work together on pressing. So, for practically every adult male I work with, I try to push them to the half kneeling press, because I think it does so much for the mobility and the flexibility and the weaknesses that most American men that I work with have, and their fragile egos. I like this. I think it's a good idea. I'm not a big fan of the both knees down, the sometimes called the tall kneeling press, only because, most, like my case, it hurts my knees to do it. I don't have a ton of knee problems, but still, kneeling even on a pad is a pain. And when you said the snatch here, I would not be a fan of doing the one-handed snatch from a half kneeling or kneeling position. I think you lose that hinge movement, which I think is the key to the movement. But I got to tell you, Andrew, from the heart, the half kneeling press, supersetted with hang, just a simple 30-second hang, is one of the best things I've ever done for my upper body mobility and flexibility health. Obviously, the research is pretty good about hanging for the shoulder health, but when you mix it with those half kneeling presses, I think it really just makes the whole system kind of sing together, if you will. Thank you. Fun question, and if you ever bump into a guy named Tarl Livensmoon, tell him Dan John says hi, okay? He was our steeplechaser and 5,000 meter runner when I was at Utah State, and a really good friend of mine. I love the guy. All right, talk soon, okay? Thank you. We got a question from Drew. How would you approach the sole goal of lifting for aging? Not an athlete, just in my mid-20s and want to look the way I currently do for as long as possible. Aging gracefully, aging beautifully. That's a good question, Drew. First, and this is really important, there's going to be two, maybe a third thing, okay? Art Devaney said it when a woman asked, what do you do for fat loss? And he said, don't get fat in the first place. Drew, the best thing you can possibly do at your age is hold back the ravages of the obesity epidemic. And I am a believer that cheap, ultra-processed foods in the United States and in England are really destroying everyone's health and make everybody fat. That's a strong statement, and I actually believe it. So you're going to have to walk away from ultra-processed foods. You're going to have to get away from, listen, you got to stop eating junk. And when I say that out loud, I can't believe I'm still saying that. When I was young, there just wasn't that many sweets. And now, teachers will give out candy for a kid doing their homework. I don't know, or showing up on time. It's lunacy. These kids will play these little rec league games, soccer, basketball, whatever, and they'll ingest more carbohydrates in their, of course, win or lose, you get a candy bar and a big bottle of, electrolytes, which is just a sugar drink. It's just terrible. You got to avoid all that. So that's number one. Number two, and the number three will just be a segue off of this. You can't do any of the hold my beer and watch this stuff. You really, I was with a friend of mine who has great regrets about not wearing a helmet while riding his motorcycle. Wear your helmet. If you're skiing or bicycling, wear your helmet. Don't take unnecessary risks. Uber and Lyft and all that, taxis are your friend. If you've been drinking or you're compromised, leave the car and get a ride home. Try not to be stupid. Don't. If someone says, here's a crocodile, slap it on its forehead for $5. It's not worth $5. It's $10. No, I'm kidding. And of course, the third thing is best you can learn how to fall. And even now at your age, you want to be thinking about balance and some tests for balance. In my workshops, I always stop at step one. Of course, that's stand on one foot for 10 seconds. And then I show all these drills that I do. One of my more interesting drills that I do now is I brush my teeth. Instead of with my right hand, I brush my teeth with my left hand, and I try to stand on one foot. Now, here's the funny thing. As I'm doing that, I can feel my right hand come in trying to take over, which is an interesting thing. But I'm trying to work on minor, small things on your balance. Nothing new. Clarence Bass talks about this in his books. Clarence Bass is at cbass.com, and I'm a big fan of his books. Okay, so if you can, take a fall recovery course, a defensive driving course, floss your teeth, do all those things that are so basic and so elementary that you'll ignore it. But, maybe a defensive driving course, what's the old, there was an axiom, I don't know if it's still true, that the bulk of the accidents happen within 2 miles of your home. There's a statistical reason for that too, but just try to keep all these things in your mind first. From there, to look good, there's really two big things you need to focus on. You got to focus on, to look good as you age, glutes. So whether you do it with kettlebell swings or barbell deadlifts, I have the Brett Contreras hip machines here, the hip thrust, sprinting hills, whatever you use. By the way, the best would be a mix of all of that, of course. Whatever you use, the stronger your glutes, the younger you look. Glutes, and I've said this countless times in workshops. I don't know how much have I said it on the YouTube channel, but glute work is the fountain of youth. When I first went online, in fact, I just found a piece of paper with where I used to print off everything I found online because I didn't think it would stick around for a while. What's funny is I threw a lot of it away and then realized later that if it didn't get saved on the Wayback Machine, which started in 2002, it's gone. My first websites are gone. Gone. You can't find them, which is too bad because I had all kinds of PowerPoint presentations and articles and stuff, and they're all gone. But this group I met were called Moo Cow. And to get in the group, you had to lose 100 pounds, women only, 100 pounds of fat doing an Atkins diet or something similar. It was interesting that many of you wouldn't even recognize some of the names like Neanderthin, the early protein power stuff, but basically any of those kinds of higher protein, lower carb things. But the one thing they said in their little cheat sheets and their notes is there was a group of women who said squats and overhead presses, and there was another group of women who said deadlifts and overhead presses. What's interesting is that they nailed the work of Yanda, the great Czechoslovakian therapist who gave us so many of the terms that we still use today. I know some people disagree about Yanda, but it's, come on, I'm sure Newton got a few things wrong. I don't know what those would be. But, when the pioneers should always be respected. But the muscles of youth are the glutes and the muscles that press things overhead, the deltoids and the triceps. Interesting. If you work your glutes hard, you work your ab wall hard. And if you work your overhead press hard, you work your ab wall. The ab wall would be also in that group. So glutes, ab wall, deltoids, triceps, and I throw in rhomboids, but don't worry about it now. So wherever you are in your training, Drew, make sure you're taking your glute work seriously. Now, I'm on an Olympic lifting program right now. I have a meet coming up, but most of the time when I'm not getting ready for a meet, when you come to my workouts, you'll see, I start off with a glute loop, hip thrust, clamshell warm up. You do 15 hip thrusts, 15 clamshells, 14, 14, 13, 13 down to 1, 1. Gotta tell you, the first few times you do it, it scorches you, and then you build up to deal with that. I do the hip thrust machine. I have a little thing called Guns and Buns, where I mix the hip thrust machine with goblet squats, with deficit deadlifts, and then some other things. Sometimes it's clamshells, sometimes it's ab wheel. Really emphasize those glutes. And of course, in my gym, we overhead press. Mike Warren Brown right now is on a real long-term military pressing program. Today, my female throwers were doing seesaw presses, looked like for a long, long time. And then I look at the workout and I might have given them too much. But that's it. When in doubt, glutes and overhead press. Take care of your nutrition. Don't fall in love with caloric beverages. Stay away from, don't drink your calories, don't drink your calories, don't drink your calories. Maybe try some intermittent fasting, maybe try, improving your sleep quality. Make sure you're going in for an annual physical, annual eye check, and go see the dentist 2-3 times a year. Always buckle up, always wear your helmet, those kinds of things. The bulk of what you're going to do, Drew, is obvious and simple, but remember, only 1 in 20 Americans floss. We all know you should floss. Very few people do floss. So it's all the little things that you already know that are going to be the secret to this. Final point, and this is really important. Read a nice article the other day about, it's called survivor's bias is one of the terms. In World War II, these American bombers would come back and they would look and they'd see all these bullet holes or, flak holes throughout the thing. And at first people said, well, we should put more shielding there, more armor there to protect. And then somebody pointed out the obvious. These are all the bombers that come back. We got to study the bombers that don't make it. And one of the secrets is all the areas that don't get hit by bullets are probably the areas we need to armor up. Kind of opposite thingy. So survivor's bias is important. Every single listener is going to have a story about their great grandma whose secret to life was starting every day with, a bottle of Jack Daniels, 3 packs of cigarettes, and a pound of bacon. Survivor bias. That's going to make the news. What isn't going to make the news is that great British guy who died a couple of years ago. His name was Charles Euster, maybe, who was a bodybuilder and sprinter, well up to, I think he died at 99, and lived cleanly, bodybuild and sprinting. Well, who's going to listen to that guy? Because that doesn't make the front page of the news. But smoking 3 packs of cigarettes and making it to 100, that'll make the news. It's the old man bites dog thing. So just remember, follow follow the bigger numbers when it comes to what works and doesn't work in looking good over time. I would stay, here comes grandpa. I would stay away from drugs. I would stay away from alcohol. I would, go to bed early on, get your sleep, like my mom used to tell me. Nothing fancy. That's going to be the key. And then glutes and overhead presses. Thank you. Fun question for me to ask. I appreciate it. Okay, we've got a question from Jeb. Jeb, I would like to know your thoughts concerning strength and conditioning trainers for mixed martial arts fighters. I enjoy the concept of low volume, medium high intensity, weight train to build strength while not putting on too much mass or wear and tear. I train 5 to 9 sessions per week between grappling and striking. What is your opinion of how I should supplement strength and conditioning work to improve performance and encourage longevity in my sport? Well, I've answered this question before, and when I first started going to Perform Better and I first started traveling on the workshops, I would bump into people who had books. In fact, one of my first articles on T Nation is the 5 trainers of fitness, and I make a funny story about there was this teenager, he might have been 20, but he wanted to write a book on strength and conditioning for fighters, and he said, was this a good idea? And I didn't mean to deflate him, but I said, that book's been written. You got Ken Shamrock's book, Alan Cosgrove had a book. Everybody had books on strength and conditioning for fighters. Folks, the way you condition and train for fighting is fighting. That by far is the most important thing. Obviously, you're going to watch these videos of the guys training, and they're going to put on, I love that thing what Pavel calls it, Potemkin villages or something. They're going to make a show for you. If a whole bunch of cameras show up at track practice, I'm not going to be standing there with my arms folded going, oh God, watching my thrower do some drill. We're going to get out there and throw. We're going to make it fancy. We're going to make it lovely. We're going to work out harder than we normally do because the cameras are there. Cameras go, we go back to what we normally do. It's just the truth. I think the problem we have in fighting, and it's easing up a lot. It's interesting because the Gracies didn't do this, at least what I read about the Gracies. For a while there in your sport, it became conditioning and more conditioning. Who can do more burpees? Who can do more lunges? And the funny thing is, every time you're doing a lunge, now, if it's going in for an ankle pick, I like your lunges. But if it's just lunges in a gym, with your headphones on and you're cranking up your Steely Dan or whatever you kids listen to today, and you keep changing your music on 1,000 ankle picks a day is the kind of lunge I want to see you do. I don't want to see you lunging for lunge's sake. Doing grip work, just get in grab a hold of someone's gi or whatever they're wearing and have them try to get away from you. That's grip work. I do think easy strength is complementary. That's with an E. I constantly have to correct people about that. I think if you did a deadlift variation, a squat variation, push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded, carry every day, the reps were reasonable. I'd say rule of 10, 3 sets of 3. And you just got as easy strong as you could. I think that's a good idea. Steve Bacardi gave us the term, I think, though Marty Gallagher uses the same phrase of easy strength. And Steve Bacardi was a boxing coach. And he had a couple of rules that I still think are brilliant. He had a rule, here's a quick one, that if everybody couldn't learn a movement in about 15 minutes, he threw it out. And that's why they don't do Turkish get-ups, because, the art of the Turkish get-up, if you want to get kettlebellers to argue, ask them about, how to do a Turkish get-up. They'll fight for 6 hours about, 45-degree angle versus a 42-degree angle and something that no one cares about. But Steve was very good. So his idea was, let's find the simplest exercises we can. If I was training wrestlers, I would go back to the very first Strength and Health magazine I ever had. And I don't know where I put it because I had it out the other day. Holy cow, it's right here. No, it's not, but it's, well, maybe it is. But there's an article on kickboxing in there. But I think Val Vasilev is on the cover too. But it is an article about this great program for wrestling. And that's the famous article I read. Or if you're a 165-pound wrestler and you can deadlift 400, you're pretty convinced that you'll be able to pick up your opponent and do some things. And I always loved that idea. So I would say if you just did either the basics, you could do the powerlifting basics, you could squat, bench, deadlift. I would also suggest loaded carries, obviously farmer walks or suitcase carries, and some kind of ab drill. So there's your 5 exercises. You could do something like Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 with the military, the bench, the squat, and the deadlift, which I think is a fantastic program. And don't forget, every 4th week, you have to do the deload. But you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to be crazy. In fact, let me just summarize it this way. Either do easy strength my way or do Jim Wendler's 5-3-1. Get in the gym, spend your, if you decide to do the 1 lift a day style of Wendler's program, you'll be in and out in no time in your workouts. Get the work in and then get back on the mat. Personally, I think all conditioning for fighters is on the mat in the ring. I get it. You get tired doing burpees, but if I'm choking you out and you have to fight through. I can remember when I was in high school, I had a teammate who was 3 class sizes over than me. I'm not going to mention his name, but his name was Irving Penagata. And when we were warming up, he would just get me in these holds where there was no way I was going to get out of him. And he was, 30, 40 pounds heavier than me. And I would fight and fight and fight and fight to get out of the hold. And I was always like, why do you do this to me? And he would tell me, yet we're both young kids, he felt that was the best way for me to get ready for what was going to happen on the mat. Because burpees versus fighting your way out of, by the way, sometimes these holds were illegal holds, in my own defense. Full Nelson is a hard one to get out of. I'm lucky I still have my neck. But if I've got you in a bar and a half and I'm turning you over and you're fighting to get out of that bar, you're fighting to get out of that half Nelson, you're fighting to bring your belt buckle back to the ground, you're fighting to, you do all these things. That's far different than lunges. Okay. Thanks. I hope that helped. Let me summarize it. Either easy strength or Wendler's 5-3-1, and then fight. I wish it was more scientific than that. Thank you. We have a question from Ray. I have a great home gym, full Olympic barbell set, dumbbells to 75 pounds, and 5 kettlebells, and he's got a whole list of them. Good. In fact, 20s, 24s, and a single 28. Kind of what I used to have, Ray. That's almost exact same gym. Can you help me grasp why I can get under 225 for squats and rep them out, yet double 24 front squats absolutely destroy me? With significantly less weight, my whole body's screaming at me after a kettlebell workout. Can using lighter kettlebells for a variety of squats help build mass like the barbell, or is the barbell still the king? Okay, there's 2 questions coming out of here, but let's finish what he's saying. Being 45, I've come to the conclusion that my fitness goals now are to train almost daily, like me, and to avoid injuries at all costs. I love that. I hope that I can continue to get stronger, but the word personal record is forever out of my vocabulary, as I'm forever done with the ego lifts that defined my early years. Okay, so why is 225 in the back squat easier, so to speak? And I'm making air quotes because I'm sure that a whole bunch of lunatics online are getting angry with this. Are easier than doing double 24s in the front squat. I think it comes down to the fact that when you have the double kettlebell front squats, the weight is constantly sliding down. It's called gravity. I didn't invent it. And as this weight slides down, you have to turn on muscles that are trying to, take a nap because this is a squat exercise. And as the weights slide down and move away, your anaconda strength, that's that internal pressure, has to compensate and fill all that gaps, fill all that space so that you can stay strong. 225 in the back squat. When I used to get those high rep workouts, so, a low rep day in my old training, this is a long time ago, would have been 30 reps with 225. That was the low rep workouts. Those are the ones when I was trying to get a lot of volume in. I needed that several sets. My record with the 225 is 51 at a 219 body weight. And I did it just to break 50 because that was my old record, and I just felt like I needed a personal record. When you're doing those high rep 225 back squats, you can wiggle your fingers. You can kind of shrug your shoulders. You can relax certain parts of your body. When I'm doing the 50s, every rep from 30 to 39, I'm probably breathing 8, 9, 10 breaths between every rep. Well, while I'm doing that, I'm finding places that I can turn off and relax. With the double kettlebells, I think that constant push down pressure is there. For those of you who don't have kettlebells and just want to experiment, get yourself in this position and just have someone make you plank. Just pull your hands down. Maybe even lean in and put some weight on it. And you'll quickly find that even just standing there with just a person pulling you down is causing a tremendous stress along this whole area. That's why I think they're harder. Certainly, there is magic in 225 versus 106 pounds, what double 24s are. But you're right, and I think it's something a lot of us pick up over time, is this idea that we get hosed a little bit more doing those double kettlebell front squats. Now, for pure mass, like I'm working with a high school American football player or collegiate football player, I'm going to do the high rep barbell squats, because I think for pure old school, just get big, cliche time, everybody gets slower during a football game, but nobody gets smaller. I think the barbell front squat is better for those purposes. For the rest of us, the other 99.99999% of the population, the double kettlebell front squat probably is all you need for your hypertrophy needs. If you want to explode your growth, slide over the barbell rack, but and I don't want anyone to think that this is, for me, an either or. What I'm trying to get across is both have value, but that odd thing about those double kettlebell front squats is still a bit of a mystery to me. Thank you. Fun question for me to answer. Thank you. Derek asked a question, and it's about my standards for people. Paul Lysingo gave me these standards, and the ones on kettlebells. We obviously discussed it a lot. He does give me credit for some of the information. I also have my high school standards, and I'm real proud of I use Ethan Reeves' standards from when he was a coach at Wake Forest. We call them our gold standards. I think they're brilliant. I use the 3-4-5 sometimes with some athletes, 300-pound clean, 400-pound bench, 500-pound squat. I have standards, and I have standards, and I have standards, and I have standards. But generally, they're for athletes. But let's go with the question anyway. I enjoyed your Sleepless in Seattle standards commentary on episode 233, as well as your military press commentary this week on episode 241. You can tell this was a while ago. But they got me thinking on the press movement. Flat bench presses never felt very good on my shoulders, a lot of people. Whereas overhead pressing, both military and wide grip behind the neck press, feel very comfortable for my shoulders. In context of your men's Sleepless strength standards, do you have any guidance for those who prefer to keep tabs on military press instead of bench press? I was thinking about 2/3 body weight for military press is level 4. I like that. And that is what we expect someone to do. And something close to equal body weight for level 6 with this game changer. I like that. This is a long time ago, May 21st, 1988. Coach Ralph Mon, my college coach, retired. And I finally got a chance to meet in person our great discus thrower, Glenn Passy from Utah State. He weighed 178 when he won the National Discus Throwing Championships, which is pretty impressive. And I asked him about weightlifting, and he just went like this. He kind of waved me off. He goes, we didn't lift weights like you guys. And I was like, oh, okay. Because now I want to hear. And he said he was told that if you got your press and snatch up to body weight, and maybe you're clean and jerk 20 pounds more, that's as strong as you'll never ever have to be. Of course, there's a lot more about Glenn Passy, and this isn't the time to go over it. But Glenn's insight really just got me thinking. So he weighed 178, he clean and pressed and snatched 185, and he cleaned and jerked 205, but he weighed 178. So when I was working with college athletes years ago, they were snatching 245, and I said, that's a lot of weight, but they weighed 245, and they could never press 245 to save their life. Bench, bench half the planet, but they couldn't, raise their hands over their head. So I like this idea, just from my own heart and my own experience and all the rest of, pressing body weight. And I think it's a good standard, and I like it. 2/3 sounds like a good number to me for what I would expect. I would imagine I've spent the bulk of my life always being able to press 2/3 of my body weight. And I'm talking about, no matter what I'm doing. I have pressed almost, it'd be like maybe 100, I was about to say 150% of my body weight overhead, but the math doesn't work. Maybe 130% of my body weight. I've pressed 300, I've cleaned and pressed 300 pounds from the floor, which is a lot of weight. I got to tell you that, but I like your idea here. So let's just say this in a general way, just a general thing for the military press, Derek. If you can get yourself to press your body weight, you are probably strong enough for anybody, anytime, any era. In the Bosco books, The Development of Strength and Muscle Molding, and these are the books I love because, it's the Bosco books. He does have some strength standards in the back, and for his press and snatch. So he thinks you're strong at 160. These are male. He thinks you're moderately strong at 165. You're strong at 200. You're super strong at 225. And then he has something called Super Dreadnought or Hero Standards, and that's a 275 press. And by the way, the numbers are the exact same for the snatch. I think you're hitting about the same numbers. I think your insights are good. If every one of our readers could clean and press 75 kilos and snatch 165, we would have a pretty strong listenership out there. Those are good numbers. And so I like your idea here, and I haven't thought about it too much. Paul and I, at the time of the conversation, we were much more using kettlebell numbers, and so you'll notice that like the men's number for presses they're relatively reasonable. I know we were supposed to, for the kettlebell cert, the RKC, we're supposed to press the 24 kilo for 5. It might be 4, but nobody presses for 4. One presses 4 reps. It's 5, 3 or 5, not 4. But I would expect most of the men I work with to be able to press double 24s for 10. They might have to build up to it for a week or so, but that would be the standard. Those numbers are much lower than the barbell number I just shared with you, because A, it's for 10, and with those independent suspensions of the shoulders, sometimes doing double presses, dumbbell or kettlebell, are just harder than the barbell. But I gave you a lot of numbers there. I think maybe it'd be kind of fun for you to do what I used to do at the schools, is use natural plates. So we had bumper plates that were, the old barbell plates, the 95, the 25, the 35, the 45. So, clean and press 95, clean and press 115, clean and press 135. Combine the 25 and the 35 and you get 165, just play with, go 45 and the 25, that gets you 185, 45 and the 35. Now we're at 205. I think if you just jump for those natural plates, I used to call them natural numbers. So you're not putting 2.5s and 5s or whatever it is on the sides. Don't worry about it. I think those, to me, that's a better way to have a goal. 100 kilos is 220, but it'd be real hard for an American lifter with our pounds to put 220 on the barbell and make a go of it with a personal best in the bench press. There's few of us that wouldn't slide on the two big plates. The few that don't do that, well, I admire your self-discipline. A great question. I do hope it helped. I gave you a lot of numbers. Not a lot of it made any sense, but basically I think you're on the right track with the numbers you came up with here, okay? And of course, Bosco's numbers, they're from the early 1950s, 52 to 54. This is pre-steroids, and he expected people to press 165 to, just pretend they were strong. I can guarantee you can go to most gyms in America, and the number of men who can press 165 would be very, very, very low. Very low. Thank you. Fun question. I enjoyed answering. We have a question from Christian. Do you suggest a preferred sequence of reading your books? That is an interesting question. Recreational athlete, mountain bike, swimming, golf, 63 years old, 69 inches tall, 168. Working with kettlebells for 7 years using Pavel's books as guides. I normally stay away from YouTube. Well, and here you are. But was directed towards your series and have enjoyed your professional approach. Feel I've gained insight and knowledge as a retired Navy diver. That's fantastic, man. I work with the divers, U.S. Navy, and some other people. I have my share of injuries. Yeah, you guys do. But push through and find kettlebell barbell instruction complements my resistant band work for heavy light days. Your question is good here. Okay, Christian, I like your question. Sorry, there was a mistake in the typing after. Thank you, Christian. I like your question. Is there an order in my books? They certainly weren't written very. Never Let Go, which a lot of people will write in their top 10, most important. It makes me laugh when I see it as one of the most influential strength and conditioning books ever, because I'll read it sometimes and it's some of the articles like ramblings of a madman, which, I am. But Never Let Go and Before You Go are compilation. Did I just make up a word? Compilation books that take a whole bunch of articles from here and there, a lot of T Nation, some Men's Health, some other places, and combined into one book. I like those two books a lot. So that's Never Let Go and Before You Go, because of that style. I think they're fun books because you can just pick up a chapter anywhere and enjoy it. If you don't find anything interesting in the first few seconds, you come back to it or just move on to something else. So I like those. I have a 3-part series of books called Intervention, Can You Go, and Now What? And those are more my, a lot of colleges use those books. I will either visit those colleges that use those books either personally, like I did just a few weeks ago, or I will visit the course, through Zoom or Skype call or something like that, and answer questions. Those books are how I piece together the whole process. Intervention is a series of 10 questions. Basically, they're all loaded questions, but the idea on let's keep knocking away all the nonsense. What do you need? Not necessarily what you want, but what do you need to train? And then here are some answers. Can You Go is my assessment book, and it narrows that down even more. Can You Go is that I don't even ask questions anymore. I just make you do stuff, and then we figure out one of 9 places that you can be. Then we kind of plug in your age, whether you're an athlete or not, and then boom, we give you workouts. The workout generator is based, the algorithm on the workout generator, which is at danjohnuniversity.com, is based on that book. And then the next book in that series is Now What? And Now What is a phrase. It's funny. Can you go is what I ask an athlete or a person before they do something. Can you go? If the answer is yes, good. If you can't, then okay, we're not going to do it. Now what is what I ask after a competition. High level questions here. But now what is my attempt to teach what the lessons we learn in performance and apply them into real life. But what's most important is after every track meet, weightlifting meet, whatever, you sit down and you go over the mistakes, the insights, the smart stuff, the dumb stuff, shoulda, woulda, couldas, and everything else. So those 3 books, Intervention, Can You Go, and Now What, those would be the ones I would use if you want to slide into training or coaching. And then you would also throw with that my book, 40 Years with the Whistle, where I talk about all the mentors I've had, fortunately, in my career. And then from 40 Years with the Whistle, if you have those other 3 books, you'll start to see why I do things. I just steal it from the real masters of my life, the people who helped me out. From there, boy, I just feel like I have another book called Attempts, where I just have these short little essays. It was a fun book for me to write. People said that my chapters were getting too long. So the original plan was 365 chapters. We could read a chapter a day. But then once I started getting into it, I really enjoyed it. There's another book out there called, well, there's a couple that won't make the list. From Dad to Grad, a book I wrote for my daughter when she graduated from the 8th grade, Kelly. And it's free online all over the place. It's just life lessons I had learned by 2004. So not much has changed in that area. I have a book called A Contrarian Approach to the Discus Throw, which is how I coach the discus. It's free on the site. And then From the Ground Up, how I teach the young kids to lift weights, again, free on my site. The more recent books, Easy Strength, Easy Strength, my book, is a updated version of Easy Strength that I did with Pavel, which is very expensive. People sell it on eBay for like $400. Holy cow. But the Easy Strength Omni book, Easy Strength for Fat Loss, and the Armor Building Formula, my newer books, these are all do this kind of books. Now, I have an older book called Mass Made Simple. It's a 6-week journey into getting big. I love the book. I think it's the best thing I ever did. It's just hard work, and people don't want to work hard. No offense, okay? No offense. But it is hard. It is a hard training program. I expect you to squat your body weight for 50 reps at the end. Easy Strength Omni book is just like the original book in many ways, expanded, obviously, some things clarified, a lot more history, a lot more understanding, a lot more experience. Basically, this idea of, you pick some traditional things, you do them every day, you just keep coming back. It's that formula, little and often over the long haul, where you just keep coming back and coming back and coming back and gently nudge your strength levels up. Easy Strength for Fat Loss is a program I did, and I lost 36 pounds doing it, so it works pretty good. And one of my friends who did it, one of the original guinea pigs, is in town, and he did marvelous changes. Basically, you do a short, easy strength workout, and then you go for a walk. And after the walk, you eat a meal with lots of protein and veggies. Shock, and it works. And then the new book, The Armor Building Formula, that's about the ABC Armor Building Complex, high rep military presses, and basically bodybuilding for everybody else. There's no 12-hour workouts. You don't need very much equipment. It's a higher volume. It mixes some higher volume stuff with some conditioning stuff. But man, some of the feedback I'm getting, I just had a nice little thing the other day about this guy doesn't weigh, but his wife and his friends keep commenting how good he looks. He doesn't weigh in, he doesn't take pictures, but everyone in his life is like, hey, you look pretty damn good, which is high praise. Little thing I think you should all do. When someone gives you a compliment, write it down. Compliments just don't happen very often in our world anymore. So if you get a compliment that you look good, you're moving well, write it down, because sometimes that's the best evidence of progress. Gosh, I hope that helps. So it was a fun thing going on with books. I may have forgotten one of my books. Real good chance. In fact, I'm sitting here going, which one did I forget? Oh, Hardstyle Kettlebell Challenge. Okay. That's on the 3 basic movements in kettlebells, and I enjoyed writing the book. It's interesting. on Amazon, one of the reviewers says that I'm so full of myself he couldn't read the book. I thought that was fascinating. I do have strong opinions. If I'm full of myself, well, good for me. But I just thought that was a funny comment, because when I read these, I have a whole bunch of bodybuilder autobiographies, and auto in that means ghostwriter, and how they overcame all these things, and they never did drugs. Okay, fun question. If you really just want to get a taste of things, the 2 books I would look at would be 40 Years with the Whistle, available at On Target Publishing, otppublishing.com. And then, the Armor Building Formula, or the Easy Strength Omni book that are available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. Those would be, I'd look at those 2 first if you don't know. If you like the way I write, and many people don't, and God bless them, then maybe move in to some of these other texts. Thanks so much. That was very nice. Thank you. Okay, we have a question from Patrick. I am looking for a new challenge, and you have spoken about doing 50 barbell squats with bodyweight in the past. This seems like a wonderful endeavor. How would you recommend someone going about attempting this feat? Boy, talk about piggybacking on a question. Patrick, I have a book called Mass Made Simple, and I give you everything you need to do to get there. The book is available at On Target Publishing, otppublishing.com. It is in a spiral binder, and if I had a copy of it, I would share it with you. But every time I have a copy of it, I loan it out, and I never get one back. So that's on me. Mass Made Simple, it's a 6-week program. It can be 7, where basically it's complexes, bench press, 1-arm presses, a few other exercises thrown in, high rep squats. And it's the system I use to get people to get up to body weight for 50. That's what I recommend, because it works, and it's worked over and over and over again for well over 2 decades now. It's not a popular program because it's so hard, and I'm just being honest with you, Patrick. I don't know how you can make 50 reps with 225 on your back easy. I just don't know how you make it an easy work if you're squatting deep. The squats I saw at a gym a couple of months ago, you could probably do it the first day, because I think you should bend your knees when you squat. Funny that way. But just horrible squats. But that is what I recommend, and I'm going to hold tight to that. Thank you. Good question, and enjoy the book. Well, we have a question from Jeff. I'd love to hear you talk about deadlift for those of us with poor leverage off the floor, short arms. Well, actually, if you have short arms, I think it is an advantage in deadlift. I suddenly sounded like a South Carolina lawyer. It's an advantage. What would you modify with regards to program design, etc., compared to those with better or optimal leverages? Oh wait. Short arms is an advantage in the bench press. Long arms are an advantage in the deadlift. I apologize. But it's funny, I have to remind myself of that sometimes. Yeah. It's funny how leverages work. Sometimes I feel like I can get my bench to progress just by looking at weights, short arms. But deadlifts have been a huge challenge ever since I first touched a barbell 25 years ago. At some point while coaching NC2A athletes a decade ago, I realized that I have a horrible wingspan for the NBA, for the National Basketball Association. I like this question. So one of the things I usually recommend for anybody who works in the military or any of my athletes is I almost universally tell them to stop deadlifting from the floor. Having said that, if you come to my gym, you'll see we do a lot of deficit deadlifts. If you come to my gym, you'll see a lot of hip thrusts and a lot of those, more intense glute exercises. It's because I think there's real value in training the glutes for most of my clients, most people I work with. But when it comes to deadlifting with your short arms, you're going to really have a hard time there. And it's going to be an issue. I would suggest moving to the rack. You might even want to try playing around with the straps out of the rack too, just to see how strong you could be if you deadlifted. There's an older exercise called, sometimes they're called deadlift lockouts, but I've also seen a few other words. Like it made sense to me when I heard someone call them pin deadlifts, because you put pins in the rack to hold the weight. But this is basically, you put the barbell about on the high thigh area, high as you can really, and then you just see how much weight you can pull. I'm going to tell you something. I recommend wearing a mouthpiece on this and making sure your tongue is not between your teeth on this, because the intensity on this, you will bleed in the mouth if you bite your tongue, and you'll grind your teeth to death. But you'll be shocked how much you can short range deadlift, and I think it's a great exercise for someone with lever issues. For me, when I did we're at the Olympic Training Center and they had us do this test, and basically I maxed out the machine on the top squat, eighth squat, the top part of the squat. And when I went to the bottom, I was just, I was nothing. That's the way my levers work. At the top end, this high deadlift, this 1/8 squat, I'm world class. But when you bring that bar down lower and lower and lower to the ground, or lower to the earth, I get weaker and weaker and weaker in those positions. I'm not born to squat, and I'm okay with that. Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm not born to squat. But play around with racks, play around with deadlifts off boxes, play around with some different techniques. One thing I would like you to look at, it might not work for you depending on the rest of your leverages, but you might even want to investigate the sumo squat style. For some people, it is the answer to all questions. For other people, it is just a whole bunch of, it's just more, and it doesn't help them at all. But I think we underrate that quarter squat and that top end deadlift. I sure hope it helps. Jeff, that was a good question, and I appreciate it. Now, that's it for our questions today for some reason. But remember, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. I enjoyed these questions today. And please keep sending those questions. I'll do my best to keep answering. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.